What's up, everybody? Welcome in live and on time tonight. How about that? Live and on time. And in doing so, I forgot to send out my tweet. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. All right. And I am here fighting through the pain that was the K State game last night. Not just a loss, but losing damn near the entire roster to injury, including two quarterbacks. It could not have gone possibly worse for your boy last night. But yet, I am here. Let me go ahead and get this out. YouTube. Live time. You know what? I'm not even going to tease it. I'll just throw the link out there and come back to you guys. Okay. All right. So here we go. Anyway, yes, TCU wins the showdown of Big 12 unbeatens, coming back from 28 to 10 down. I don't even know, man. It was exhausting. There is a lot that came out of that. TCU has lived a pretty charmed life this year with injury luck, but hey, they're a good team and they're taking care of what's in front of them. And it takes poise to rally from 18 down, whether K-State's playing its third string quarterback or not. So a lot of credit to the Frogs. And, I'm already seeing stuff in the playoff discussion. I mean, TCU for being 7-0 can't get as much respect as Texas was getting for being 4-2 before this upcoming week or this last week in the college football playoff discussion. So, that's pretty par for the course. But of course, that is going to be the case. Speaking of, you guys saw the tease on the video. Bad news for Texas and Oklahoma. I would say that it's bad news for Texas on the field. It's bad news for Oklahoma off the field. We got some news on Brent Venables' contract that not sounded so great if you're an Oklahoma fan, I would say right now. Maybe they're in a better place fan base-wise after the win over Kansas and getting to sit on it and think about it for a while. But I would say not great if you're wanting to make any kind of a quick move on Brent Venables and you are the Sooners. Obviously on the field, look, Texas is still Texas. I mean, that is the biggest thing. So predictable. We kick off this playoff hype machine for Texas. They almost lose to Iowa State. And instead, the narrative gets flipped around to, gritty win, program win. This is different. I mean, we heard it over and over on the broadcast yesterday. This is a different Texas team. Things are different this year. And then what happens? They face plant with an Oklahoma State team that, speaking of teams decimated by injuries, is decimated by injury. And Spencer Sanders guts it out and wins the game, plays worlds better than Quinn Ewers, despite the injury that he is battling through right now. And Ewers, on that topic, I mean, look, I'm not going to just napalm the kid because of him. I don't want to crush a college kid, right? But it's the hype that surrounds him and building him up into this savior already. And he goes 19 for 49, man. 19 for 49 in the game. So Quinn Ewers is not quite ready to be that guy. And we go through this same story arc with whoever is going to be the next savior of Texas, man. I've heard it all. Obviously, it was Sam Ehlinger there for a while. It was I recall Ian Boyd. I just still remember Ian Boyd coming in and telling me Pete Kwiatkowski coming in as the defensive coordinator was going to make the difference. That was either a year or two ago. I don't remember which one. Face planted, didn't work. Now we're doing the same thing with Ewers. Now he face plants at a big spot. They're obviously out of the playoff discussion. Although I don't know if you're ever going to try and throw in a 3-loss team, it would be Texas, knowing how the media operates. But out of the playoff discussion and in a really tough spot when it comes to the Big 12 championship. Pecking order right now too. So that was not a good loss for Texas at all. I digress. We'll get into that more. We will certainly get into that more as the show goes on. Elsewhere on the field, I mean, Texas Tech is not a team that I would mess with right now. I do want to spend some time on Texas Tech because the Red Raiders win. And if you just look at their resume right now, I mean, it's 3 top 20 road losses on their resume. Everything else has been pretty good, and they just walloped West Virginia this weekend. We probably have to start having conversations about a couple of coaches, one of which obviously is Neil Brown at West Virginia right now, and how long that is going to stay on the current track that it's on, because that was a really bad result for him, trying to build some momentum off the Baylor win. Did not go very well. And then the other one, I'm actually just saying this. I didn't know that there was legitimately any talk about it, but I just saw that, was it David? Yeah, I saw David, one of our BYU fans in here, saying coaching change coming for BYU. They're tanking as if Kalani, or talking as if, tanking. You said tanking. They're tanking as if Kalani Sitake is leaving. It's not going well for BYU right now. They're kind of in free fall mode after what happened on Saturday. Baylor got back on track, beat Kansas, pretty sloppy, lots of turnovers. Kansas fought their butts off again. It was pretty similar to me to the Oklahoma game where they probably should have lost by 4 scores, but they come back and make it interesting in the end and had it down to a 1-score game with just a couple of minutes left. So pretty standard, I think, for what we've seen from Kansas so far this year. And Baylor still has some issues, but definitely needed that win. It had been a while since the Bears had won a game based on the schedule. So, okay, that's what we have on the field. Off the field, I mentioned the Brent Venables contract story. If you guys watched the standalone video that I put out on Saturday morning, first time I've done that in a minute, that was about what the specific dollar figure was going to be for the Big 12 TV contract if it were going to get done with Fox and ESPN. And that came from Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist at the New York Post. He's saying $400 million a year for the league. And if you break that down, it's about $33 million per school. Now, that is, again, just tier 1 and tier 2 rights, not everything all encompassed. So it would be about a $5 million per year increase from where the Big 12 is at right now, which I know can get confusing. But that is an important dollar figure because it represents an increase. It's a fairly modest increase. So it's kind of like splitting the difference between conference naysayers and those of us here, like on this channel, that have been big-time Big 12 supporters and conference supporters. It's sort of right in the middle. It's an increase. It's a modest increase. Would that be enough for Yormark to do it? Is that number going to be totally accurate? I suppose we'll find out. But I think it's fine. Like, I think I never really expected that number to get outrageously high. I didn't believe the highest of high hope rumors in the Big 12. But we, of course, have had a response from Pac-12 country. John Canzano wrote an article, or a column rather, about Brett Yormark. And I mean, I would say maybe he would disagree with this, and maybe this is a little bit strong, but the tone of the article was kind of, to me, like, hey, Brett Yormark may be sort of a con man. Like, Brett Yormark may be all talk and no walk. So I'll read you some of that. A fairly predictable response from Canzano. And I don't think it was wildly unfair. I understand bringing up some of this as a question, but a lot of the article, I mean, it just glossed over things like the NASCAR piece of this, as if that's not a big deal when, I mean, he generated a ton of money and popularity for NASCAR, which is exactly what the Big 12 needs right now, is money and popularity. So it seems like he's pointing out that the guy's been pretty good at his job, while saying, he may just be all talk. He's been talk and walk throughout his career. Anyway, that's what we have as far as conference realignment goes here today. As always, you guys know the drill. You want to control the content. You want to control what it is that we're talking about tonight. You can do so in the chat by donating, because we've got already over 160 people here in the chat tonight. Too much for me to read, but if you want to get in, you can donate by clicking the $ below the chat box where it says say something. Donate. It'll tack it up at the top for me, so I will not miss it. That is a way to ensure that I will read what it is that you are putting out there today. And it supports the work that I'm doing here, bringing you Big 12 content on this channel week in, week out. I can't do it without your guys' support, so I really appreciate each and every one of you that do chip in there. And if you're watching this taped and you don't have a chance to hop in live here, it's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you would like to contribute as well. Like the video, please. Last thing I will remind you before we really get off and running here, like the video if you can, totally free, just one click. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm, helps drive up those views and engagement. So I'd appreciate that. As always, doesn't cost you a dime, and it is a way that you can help out the channel as well. If I'm fidgeting with my glasses, I got some new glasses. I got 2 new pairs of glasses, so I'm rocking one of them right now. And it's like the first day of actually wearing this pair. So still feels a little weird. But I hope it's coming through okay on the channel here. What's up, Zach? First out of the gate, we've got my man Zach, our resident Cincy fan. Zach says, Cincy update. UC barely beat a crappy SMU team. Look bad. Fortunately, UCF has a loss, or had a loss to ECU. Next week, future Big 12 matchup might be a slap fight. Well, come on. Look, I know Cincinnati has not always been pretty, but I did a little reading, Zach. I found out since he's won 19 straight American games, they won 19 straight league games, if I have that correct. So, look, you don't apologize for that. Take the dub. Keep on rolling. It was kind of a field goal fest, sounded like, against SMU. But, hey, taking care of business in a year where you lost a ton, don't apologize for that. Do not apologize for that. Now, UCF getting walloped, not just losing, but walloped by East Carolina was certainly surprising to me. It was much more the margin of victory there than anything else, because ECU has been better. I mean, I'm aware that ECU has been better this year. but I did not expect them to really soundly beat UCF the way they did. And then I saw East Carolina. They took it was like a picture. They photoshopped a picture of the UCF Knight, like the mascot. I'm trying to remember what it said. It says like "Thank you for the L" or something like that. They were messing around on social media. They did a pretty good job after the game with how they handled it on social media. So I did find that pretty entertaining. That's right. Okay. Sorry, I'm reading too much here. McMuffin, what's up, McMuffin? Happy to have you here. Best name that we got going in the chat. McMuffin says, oh, sorry, that just jumped down to the bottom for me. McMuffin says, SEC ready Texas throws 3 picks and allows 41 points to a Big 12 team. Sick 'em Bears. Yeah, that is right. We can hop into that game if you want, because this is a part of the tease on the video. Usually I'm not very good at getting into those right away, but this is a part of it, man. It is the bad news for Texas is not only do you have a loss, not only are you out of the playoff discussion, which was a ridiculous discussion in the first place, but you are still Texas. Like the same problems that have existed still exist now at Texas and for Texas. That is what we know, because this was a program win for Oklahoma State. You know, for all the talk about last week was a program win for Texas over Iowa State. This is a program win for Oklahoma State. No business winning that game. No business. Texas was in control early. They looked clearly like not just like a better team, but just a fresher team. I mean, Oklahoma State has all these injury issues. They're beat up, and Texas seemed like the team that was more equipped to go in and win that game. And of course, it doesn't happen. It falls apart in the second half. Quinn Ewers is not ready for the road environment in Stillwater, which, you know, I mean, here's a part we're ready to throw Texas into the playoff and debating whether or not the committee should take into account that Ewers missed time in the Bama game, and yet, or gets knocked out in the Bama game. But we're not taking into account the guy hadn't played a road game since 2020 in high school. And now he goes into Boone Pickens Stadium. Like, that's not an easy place to play at all, man. And he wilted 19 of 49. It was a pretty bad performance. Not on the same page with his receivers at all throughout the game. So many times throughout that game, Ewers was letting one fly deep that was off. It was like 5 yards wide, or Xavier Worthy was like cutting off a route and Ewers wasn't on the same page with him and the ball goes sailing. I mean, we saw it time and time again. And it just proves how silly that discussion was. And it is so dumb that the media gets suckered in by this every single year with Texas. It has been 13 years since Colt McCoy led Texas into the national championship game. 13 years. And we see this bleep every single year. Someone at some point in the season will find a way to talk themselves into Texas and the playoff. And it is dumb. And they lose to Oklahoma State for the 7th time in 10 years. And it was summed up perfectly, I think, by Derek Mason, who is Oklahoma State's offensive or defensive coordinator rather now, formerly head coach at Vandy. Derek Mason said, when I walk out of the building, I don't see Ferraris and Lamborghinis. I see Ford F-150s, Chevys. I see blue-collar stuff. And I think our kids are immersed in the idea of toughness all day long. That's a pretty great quote. Obviously, in reference to the fact that, you know, you got Bijan Robinson with a Lambo deal. And for the record, I mean, Bijan is not the problem. Bijan is not the problem at Texas. He's great, and he's pretty consistently great. But that's the whole idea of the program, right? We say country club program with Texas. It's very true. And unfortunately for Texas, it shows up in moments like this when the tough guys go get it done. Beaten, battered, bruised, they go get it done. Spencer Sanders makes plays, goes and gets it done. Oklahoma State's defense comes up with stops when they need to, and they go get it done. So it was just, I mean, it was like chef's kiss Texas stuff throughout that game. The Oklahoma State radio broadcast apparently was getting pretty spicy with it and really feeling themselves, because I saw Reddit College Football tweeted that the Oklahoma State radio broadcast, which is a great broadcast, by the way. Really respect Dave Hunziker, the play-by-play voice at Oklahoma State, one of the nicest guys that you'll meet in the business. And Robert Allen, really good sideline reporter, very well connected in Stillwater. I apologize. I should know who their color guy is. Actually, I'm not coming up with that offhand. But anyway, apparently this was a quote from it. Quote, this was a matchup between a team with a winning culture and a team without a winning culture. The team with the winning culture won today. I mean, that pretty much sums it up. That pretty much sums up exactly what the hell happened in Stillwater. The team with the winning culture came through and won a game that In a lot of respects, they probably should not have won, but they rose up and did it because they are tough. They are not weak. They are not a country club program, and they know how to win games like that. Texas does not. And Sark, for as good of an offensive mind as he is, and he is a great offensive mind. I mean, I will not attack what Sark is as an OC and a play caller. Like, there were some plays. I'm trying to remember the one early in the game that was particularly impressive to me, where I was just like, man, he really dialed something up there. That was a great play. He will throw in something every week that's like, that's a great creative way to get a guy like Xavier Worthy in space for a touchdown, right? But when it comes to changing the culture of this program, I mean, one, I'm afraid some of it is just kind of beyond Sark's reach, but certainly beyond Sark's reach in terms of what he has as a head coach and what he has as a guy that can be a leader and change the culture of a program. Those problems are just so deep-seated at Texas, and the Lambeau thing kind of gets at it. I mean, it's almost exasperated now by the money that's going to be bouncing around NIL-wise because, yeah, now you have even more distraction with these kids that are already in Austin, which is, I say this all the time, it's almost doubled in size since Mac Brown took over as the head coach way back when. It is a different beast filled with way more distraction than it was even before. And now you're throwing kids with tons of money and Lamborghinis and all that on top of it in there, like keeping them focused on football and being tough, like guys that are hanging out in Stillwater, Oklahoma. It's a tough task. It's a tough task, and it should not shock anybody that Oklahoma State wins that game. And so Texas is back to doing Texas things. I was pretty steadfast in saying we're not going to have to worry about any of this playoff deal. They're going to lose games. I still don't think we're going to have to worry about them in the Big 12 championship game. They've already almost lost the game to Iowa State and then immediately lose the game at Oklahoma State. So, look, now the problem with this is I'm going to say all this, and I know Texas fans remind me of this all the time. K-State has struggled recently with Texas, and with K-State's beat up roster, I mean, I don't feel confident. We'll get into that in a moment. I'm sure somebody will get me there with a question at some point, and I'll have to talk about it. But I don't feel good about where K-State's going because of the roster issues, the injury issues that they have right now. And so Texas in 2 weeks, I'm not looking forward to that game at all. But, I mean, that is a difficult spot, theoretically, where Texas could lose a game, too. I mean, they have plenty of losable games the rest of the way because they play in the Big 12. So that's the reality in 2022. Anyway, thank you, McMuffin, for allowing me to get on my soapbox there. And congratulations to your Bears for picking up a win, holding on after just completely obliterating Kansas in the first half, holding on in the second half to Lance Leipold's bunch, which fights their butts off every single time they're out there. I mean, you cannot let up for a second or they're going to get back into the game. Tommy, what's up, Tommy? Appreciate the donation. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for being here tonight in the chat. Tommy says, great game this weekend between the Cats and the Frogs. Maybe we'll meet again in the ship. Go Frogs and all glory to the Hypnotoad. The Hypnotoad is pretty sweet. I dig that. That's some pretty good branding by TCU. It was a great game, but it was just I mean, I'll be honest, it's just an exhausting one from my standpoint, and just one that leaves me battered, bruised, depleted, down. I was just getting a little bit of I should be careful what I say, I guess, but just what I have heard on the injury front. I mean, what I experienced Saturday with the injury front was just, I mean, I was laughing by the end of it. I was laughing for a number of reasons. One, the fact that Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman's those guys were so clueless to everything that was going on. I mean, they had a hard enough time identifying who's making tackles and clearly had their boards flipped to the wrong team because they're talking about Felix Anudike-Uzomah making tackles on K-State ball carriers. But they had no idea of the amount of injuries that were piling up for K-State, and there was no mention of that during the broadcast. They didn't have a sideline reporter, so we're getting no updates on Adrian Martinez. It was a freaking clown show. I mean, the fact that Brando and Tillman are doing like number one FS1 games there and get a primetime matchup like that because baseball is taking over the main Fox slot, it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. And there are so many play-by-play guys that grind their butts off out there that are way hungrier and way more talented at this stage in their career than what Brando is. And it is a travesty that we had to sit there and listen to that for 3 hours. But it was just a crazy game. It was just an exhausting game. I mean, Adrian Martinez played 3 snaps for K-State. He played, was it maybe like 4? It was the first series. He played the first series for K-State, and then he was out. Now, I had heard a little something about that he had a lingering issue coming out of Iowa State. K-State was really beat up after the Iowa State game. but they had a bye week, and you thought, all right, they're going to get pretty healthy. And they sure talked a good game during the press conference this week about how much healthier they were. And almost immediately coming back into the game, it was like everybody with a nagging issue was still battling it. And it's all K-State's best players, you know? So look, I'm going to try and give you're a TCU fan, obviously, and I'm going to try and give a more global view of the game than just being mired in the pit of despair that I'm feeling for K-State right now. But the reality is, and I want to point this out because, again, the TV broadcast did this no justice at all. And I don't do this to take away from TCU, but Adrian Martinez was lost on the first series of the game. Will Howard, who played great, came in and lit it up, looked so much better. I mean, he was really bad most of the time when he's played, when Skylar Thompson's been hurt each of the last 2 years for K-State. Looked immensely better, worlds better. Came in, led K-State to 4 touchdown drives. They jump out in front 28-10. But the key point in the game, and no discussion of this on the broadcast at all, none, zero, zilch. Daniel Green, who is a first-team All-Big 12 linebacker, preseason All-Big 12 linebacker for K-State, he gets injured, he goes out, and TCU immediately starts abusing K-State's backup linebackers. Totally changed the course of the game. K-State was not getting stops anymore. TCU's offense had it figured out. They were diagnosing it. I mean, credit to Garrett Riley, went right after it. And from that point on, K-State really had a hard time slowing down or stopping the TCU offense. It was a huge part of it. Julius Brents, who is a first-team All-Big 12 corner, preseason All-Big 12 corner. He's the guy that got toasted by Quentin Johnston on the touchdown. He had been hurt. Chris Kleiman said afterwards they probably shouldn't have had him in the game at that point. He obviously comes up lame, holding the hamstring, gives up the long touchdown. I mean, he's another guy that was playing hurt throughout the entire game and then gets burned for a touchdown there. You had Deuce Vaughn going out for a second straight game. He missed some time. We're talking about like all of K-State's frontline guys. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, the All-American pass rusher. He's battling a nagging injury, can only play limited snaps. He's the guy who had 6 sacks against TCU last year. So, like, there's just a ton going on there. TCU took advantage. They didn't wilt when they were down 28-10. I think one of the biggest plays of the game was 3rd and 10. When it's 28-10 and K-State got the ball back, they get a stop. I hated the play call from Colin Klein that was very conservative when they went quarterback draw, but TCU made the play. They got a touchdown before halftime, and the onslaught was on in the second half. So TCU is good. I think they're a good team that is living a very charmed life and taking advantage of it. And you don't need to apologize for that. You know, I mean, if I were TCU, I would not be apologizing for that for a second. Because, by the way, what has TCU been doing all year? Playing with their backup quarterback, Max Duggan. So, like, I understand to an extent everybody is dealing with this. And I just rattled off all the Oklahoma State injuries. The frustrating part from a K-State standpoint is that the program just does not – they do not have enough depth to withstand all of these injuries. And in fairness, not a lot of programs would, with as injury depleted as K-State is right now, to be able to still hang on and win a game like that in Fort Worth. But that was the tough part to me. I mean, TCU's offense clearly is very good. I thought, you know, as good as Duggan has been, the running back, Kendre Miller, was equally as impressive, if not more impressive. I think he's a really key part of what TCU does that doesn't get enough shine because people focus on Duggan and what a story it is that Duggan is doing what he's doing. So, look, TCU is really good. I don't think that they're going to make it through unbeaten, but they should be in the playoff conversation based on what they've done right now. And I will say this. I was looking around, reading around some of that. You know, Stuart Mandel led off his column, like his post-Saturday column with, hey, the Big 12 is going to be just fine without Texas and Oklahoma, and spotlighted TCU, Oklahoma State, K-State, what's happening in this league, what happened last year, what's happening now this year. So I think there are some more eyeballs on it this year. People are taking note of what an entertaining conference it is. That will probably help TCU out some, but you just know that the discourse is not going to be nearly the same as it would be if this were still Texas, even with 2 losses overall at this point. Browns and Beers says we can officially say that KSU made the right choice between Kleiman and Neal. Frustrated doesn't even begin to describe how I felt Saturday. Go Ears. Yeah, I feel for you, West Virginia fans. And what Browns and Beers is referring to there is the fact that Chris Kleiman and Neal Brown were 2 of the finalists for the K-State job. Mike Norvell actually was the other one. So, I mean, honestly, if you're looking at that choice, I would say Gene Taylor probably did make the right choice there in hiring Chris Kleiman over Mike Norvell and Neal Brown. Both of the latter 2 look like they're guys that are going to be on their way out. I don't know how much longer Neal Brown is for that job. I know there's still a significant enough buyout, but it is not looking good. Neal Brown, I pulled a quote from him that I thought was interesting after the game where he said it was, I don't want to misquote him here. Said it was as disappointed as he has been in his career with a game or team. So yeah, not good. Fifth road loss of 25 plus points in the Neil Brown era for West Virginia. Not competitive at all. Tech jumped on him early. Now, I will also say this. I mean, in fairness to Brown, Tech's playing pretty good football right now, and Baron Morton, finding that kid who's been over 300 yards in each of his first two games, it's a revelation. And I'm sitting here talking about quarterback injuries. Tech is on their third string quarterback, and it's Baron Morton, and he's out there slinging it for 300 yards. K-State's third string quarterback was Jake Rubley, who was a four-star recruit, and he was out there looking. I mean, I think he kind of is in a position where he was asked to do more than he's ready for, but he threw a bad pick and then turned it over on downs. Had a really rough quarterback sneak there on that 4th and short they decided to go for. Point being, Tech had their third string quarterback in Young Gun ready to go. He threw for 300 yards in his first two games. K-State's doesn't get it done. You lose. Tech goes and blows out West Virginia. Almost won at Oklahoma State with Morton, obviously, beforehand, too, who also was playing beat up. And I read that Baron Morton played that game against West Virginia sick. He was puking in the morning and had to get an IV to be able to play the game, and still went out there and balled. So shout out to that kid, man. I mean, and the other thing, Joey McGuire is just so aggressive. They started 6 for 6 on 4th down, right? In the first half, I think it was 3. They were 3 for 3 on 4th down in the first 7 minutes of the game. I mean, it's insane. They just put so much pressure on you by doing it that way. And I love the attitude that Joey McGuire has really instilled there. So yeah, I'd be very interested to know what the kind of general feel is in West Virginia corners right now and how long Neil Brown's going to make it here. If there's any chance, like, can he do anything to save his job the rest of the way? I guess I'm sure theoretically he could if he won out or something, but like, what is that bar for Brown with West Virginia there? And I saw someone on Twitter, I saw a little speculation about like Hugh Freeze to West Virginia, which, I mean, there are some issues there, but like Hugh Freeze at Liberty is doing a good job and definitely smoked BYU this weekend. So there are some parallels there. Nick, thank you for the donation, my friend. Nick, I appreciate it. I can already see. Sorry about the loss. Yeah. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate your support as always. Congratulations to your Cowboys, pulling hard for you guys, man. I was pretty stoked over in the other room in my living room watching that game that you guys got that done. And if K-State would have done their part, I was hearing it was very likely College Game Day would have been in Manhattan this week if K-State would have won the game. So yet another reason for me to be down very bad. K-State loses the game. Both quarterback status up in the air for the game. If you want to, that's Nick. I don't know if Will Howard or Adrian Martinez will be able to play in the game on Saturday. Don't know. I think that's going to be kind of up in the air throughout the week. I doubt that we hear anything for certain on that until game time. So K-State may be playing third string quarterback Jake Rubley, who again looked really bad. So not only missed College Game Day, blew an 18-point lead, lost 2 quarterbacks to injury, and lost your best defensive player, one of your best defensive players, probably the most important defensive player because of the lack of depth behind him in Daniel Green. I don't think he's going to be playing on Saturday either. So it ain't good. But Nick says, sorry about the loss. Wish we could have seen a healthy K-State against TCU. Game is still huge next weekend. Seems like it's always an intense game. Great for entertainment. Bad for my blood pressure. Go Pokes. Go Big 12. Yeah, you say that. I mean, I know the 2020 game wound up being a close game, even when on paper it looked like a real mismatch. And that was with Will Howard at quarterback, by the way. Remember that fumble he had when I believe he was going in to give K-State the lead, got it punched out and run back the other way for a touchdown for Oklahoma State. That's still one that sticks out and kills me to think about. But when I think of Oklahoma State against Chris Kleiman, I think of domination. I think of going to Stillwater. I mean, the trips to Stillwater have been terrible, and Oklahoma State has really just squeezed the life out of K-State. And here's the tough part about, I mean, if you're still thinking about K-State and Big 12 champs, I feel like I've probably cooled a lot of that with the talk here about the injury situation. But even beyond that, the next 3 games here, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Baylor, teams that Chris Kleiman has not beaten. Those have been the one, and not just not beaten, really been handled by in a lot of cases. So I am running very low on optimism, Nick. I saw some of the early lines. I saw one was even K-State -1. I've seen a lot of places have Oklahoma State -2 as the early line for that game. I guess I don't know that I would just touch it at all. I mean, I know Spencer Sanders is beat up. I know you guys are beat up too. So I don't mean to sit here. I'm not even really trying to make excuses. I'm just saying I'm bummed. K-State was going to have to stay relatively healthy this year to make a real run. at the title, and that's not happening at all. So I don't know, Nick. I'd be feeling pretty good if I were you about the game on Saturday, but I'll be there. I will be there. We'll see. Not a great Saturday for me. Much better Saturday for you, Nick. But very happy for you, man. Great to see Oklahoma State go out and get that win. Just a gritty, tough program. I mean, jealous of the program that Oklahoma State has. Year after year, Mike Gundy finds a way to do it. Always does. And that's a program with some real good quality depth. So congratulations. Matthew. What's up, Matthew? Thank you for the support. Thank you for donating, my friend. Matthew, big Tech fan. Matthew says, Texas Tech is back. Largest conference win since the Leach era in 2009, 66-14 over K-State. Why you got to bring that one up, Matthew? You could have just said largest win since 2009. I don't need to be reminded of Stephen Sheffield throwing for 7 touchdowns on K-State because I very much remember that game. That is a name I will never forget because of that game. Stephen Sheffield. Well, I don't think he was the starter that year. I think he was a backup quarterback, came in and threw for 7 touchdowns, and Texas Tech won 66-14. The next week, by the way, K-State put 60 on A&M and beat A&M in Manhattan. That was a wild 2-game swing. Anyway, Matthew says, hear me out. If Texas and Baylor are Big 12 title contenders, so is Tech. Glasses look clean, bro. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment on glasses and the EMOS shout out there. Well, let's see here. Let's see here. Let's go look up those Big 12 standings. Texas, look, I have no problem with you being bullish on Texas Tech at this point. Texas Tech is playing really good football. Yeah, 2-2 in the Big 12. So you got Baylor, Texas Tech, and Texas theoretically would be on the periphery of the conference championship discussion right now with just the 2 losses. I mean, you're gonna have to run the table in all likelihood. I guess maybe an outside chance depending on the tiebreakers there. If it's 6-3 and there's some real chaos, but we'll see. We'll see. The point being, you should be thrilled about where the future of Texas Tech football is headed, because not only are you playing great right now, but you're doing it with the young gun at quarterback and a guy who can really be around and do some things. I think through injury kind of stumbled into or were forced into what is going to be the best long-term option at quarterback for Texas Tech. Quarterback is the most important thing that you can have. Looks like your quarterback head coach combo is pretty good and moving in the right direction. So I would be brimming with optimism if I were a Texas Tech fan right now. Absolutely brimming with it. So let me see what's Tech's schedule coming up here. To try and give you like, hey, if they do this, I'll start really paying attention. I mean, obviously Baylor's a very winnable game this week. Then you go to TCU. All right. I mean, that's a measuring stick game. Now, I'll be honest. I think TCU is good. That's definitely a game Texas Tech can win. I mean, I may be a little jilted, but I feel like if K-State is healthy and even if Daniel Green and Will Howard play the entire game on Saturday, I feel like K-State wins. You can call me jilted, purple glasses, whatever, but that tells me that Texas Tech could definitely hang in Fort Worth. You do that, then I'll really start believing. Win the next 2, and Tech can definitely be in that conversation. Matthew also added after that, can we say Tech actually beat Texas? Not about yours. Yes, absolutely. No, I saw somebody. This was a great one, a great tweet on Saturday. It was tired. What was it? Tired. Tech only beat Texas because Quinn Ewers was out. Wired. Texas had to play Texas Tech with Quinn Ewers. And I thought, all right, that's pretty funny. That's good. Maybe if it were the other way around, it would have worked out a little bit differently. So did I get that right? Let me hang on. I'm thinking it was tired. Texas lost to Texas Tech because they didn't have Quinn Ewers. Oh, no. So I messed it up. It was tired. Texas Tech beat Texas because of Quinn Ewers being out. Wired. Texas Tech didn't blow out Texas because Quinn Ewers didn't play, insinuating that if Ewers played, it would have been a blowout. So I'm not doing that disservice. It was a much better tweet than I just clumsily stumbled all over myself here for the last 5 minutes. Okay. So my apologies there to whoever had that money tweet, because it was money. It was money. Here's Glenn. Glenn's in next. What's up, Glenn? Glenn says, I'm sorry it took so long to text, but I had to keep wiping my phone from all my tears after watching the BYU game. Oh, boy. Yeah, that wasn't good. 38 straight BYU gave up to Liberty in a loss. So that was not good. I accidentally just opened Apple News on my computer. Sorry about that. Yeah, BYU in free fall mode now. 3 straight losses, 38 straight points to Liberty. A lot of defensive issues, it sounds like, for BYU right now. And Kalani Sitake, feel for you, my friend. Very much feel for you. And sorry about that. I was chatting with another BYU fan in my Twitter DMs on Saturday, too. I know you guys are bummed. That is rough. And I was looking at peeking ahead to the rest of the schedule. There's that game against Utah Tech or something like that should be a win. But then outside of that, the other 3 are tricky enough. I know there's at Boise, there's Stanford. I forget what the other game is that's left on the schedule, but they're all losable enough. And you got to find a way to get one to get to a bowl. I would still project that BYU finds a way to do that, but I don't know. It's going to be a little bit tricky. So sorry about that. Do I see this right? Blake says the Sick'em homers love Brando. I don't know how anybody can watch a Tim Brando broadcast these days and think that you are getting any kind of a quality representation of the game. It's bad. And it's not just Tillman's bad too. They're both wretched, man. They are and I've been beating this drum for a long time. Felix Anudike Uzama got his name pronounced about 7 different ways, and I'm not even kidding. Last year in the game in Lubbock, if Tech fans remember that game, Brando could not spit out Anudike Uzama's name to save his life. It's just he's lost about 3 steps. He needs to be done. It is not good for the league that he's a guy handling a lot of the games. It sucks. Joe, thank you for the donation. Joe, really appreciate that. Back-to-back donations from Joe. Thank you, my friend. I'm not actually seeing a message attached here. Let me just check and see if there was anything there. I'm not seeing anything attached there, but thank you for the support, Joe. I see a sweet sticker with a nice goal and a little munchkin going nuts. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Joe. Joe, great supporter of the channel. Thank you for being here as always. Matthew, what's up, Matthew? Oh boy, K-State fan who made the trip to Fort Worth. Matthew says, and thank you for the support, by the way, Matthew. Matthew says, was in Fort Worth. Such a crappy feeling sitting there watching Rubley come out onto the field. I don't know how rough Martinez was, but good grief, was it that bad? TCU fans were acting like they won the Super Bowl. All right, a couple of things here. I did see that comment, because they kept showing Adrian on the sideline, and he, it's not like he went off into street clothes. He stayed in uniform. He was there. He was active walking around on the sideline. But then if you saw him, so you were at the game, Matthew, so you wouldn't have seen this. They showed him then trying to get to the locker room at halftime, and he was limping bad, almost to the point where I was like, can someone help him get to the locker room? So he was able to kind of stand up and walk around, but when he tried to go to the locker room, clearly not good. And I think I think knee is involved here. I think there may even be something else going on. So he would not have been able to play. I think K-State kind of went into the game knowing that he was pretty banged up, and the plan would have been to sling it around quite a bit. And that therein lies the problem. It's for me as a K-State fan, even if Adrian's going to come back at some point this year, the quarterback run game, it's going to be, I don't know that you can use it hardly at all. And Will Howard also is hurt. It looked like a non-throwing shoulder injury to me with him, but that means you don't want him getting tackled, and he's not even nearly as skilled at executing the quarterback run game anyway. So quarterback run game, which had been that was the explosive part of K-State's offense and the real bread and butter with the offense for the first half of the year. I don't know that you're going to be able to use it hardly at all the rest of the season. So that's another part of why I'm just down in the dumps about all this right now. And to be honest, they've got Avery Johnson coming in next year, who's a stud 4-star quarterback. Kind of as you're seeing a lot of high school quarterbacks now, plays with sort of a Mahomes style. Lots of throws on the run, arm angles, all that stuff. They get him in, as long as they get him to December and signed, get him in, change this. It cannot be as reliant on quarterback run. I understand it's utilizing Adrian Martinez's skill set to the best of your ability, but they're going to have to change that because it's the 3rd year in a row now that Will Howard's playing because of an injury, and now Howard's hurt too. They're getting guys too hurt doing this. Colin Klein was a rare breed, and his availability, despite all the carries that he took, is the best attribute really that he brought to the table. And you're not going to find that anymore with guys. So with TCU fans, now you mentioned this, Matthew, TCU fans, I've not had a lot of interactions with TCU fans. I've covered games at Amon G. Carter Stadium in 2012, 2014, 2016, and 2018. And to be quite honest with you, even though 12 and 14 were night games between pretty good teams, it was never like a super raucous, rowdy environment. I don't remember anything bad really happening. 16 and 18, those were like very mediocre to bad teams playing. And so there definitely were not many people there. So I was just taken aback by, I mean, I had friends there telling me about beer being thrown at K-State fans all over the place. They had to stop the game at one point because a cup made it into the end zone. Chris Kleiman stopped the game to yell at officials at one point because he got hit with a flying cup of beer. Like, it was bad. I mean, TCU, I don't know where this comes from, like what it is, but I just, all the reports on the ground that I heard, Matthew, were very similar to what you said, that TCU fans were acting very reckless, particularly the students, that were just a major problem. And like, why? Like, what? Where is that coming from, TCU? So something needs to be done there. And all I see after the game is Jeremiah Donati, the athletic director, being like, "Oh, students, great crowd. Once again, this is awesome." Hey, man, shore that up. Like, I guess the other part I'm surprised about, like, it's K-State. Like, there's no bad blood between the two schools at all. Like, what are you doing? What the hell are you doing, TCU fans? So, I mean, call me salty if you want, but it's a bad look, man. I mean, they stopped the game because you had a beer flying into the end zone as Chris Kleiman is burning a timeout and complaining to officials about getting hit on the sideline with stuff. Stop it. Like, what do you – signs that you haven't been there very recently before, TCU fans, and how they were acting at the game. So, yeah, that was not good. Robbie, what's up, Robbie? Thank you for the donation. Robbie says, hats off to Howard, but can we please find a new kicker? Good Lord. Yeah. It's not a good situation right now. Now, in fairness, the wind was blowing like crazy. So I know like one of those kicks, I believe, was into the wind. One of the kicks was with the wind. That's not an easy adjustment, I suppose, to make. But yeah, K-State's got some problems. Got some problems at kicker. And hey, saying hats off to Will Howard. Yes, Will Howard deserves a ton of credit for coming in, leading 4 touchdown drives. I believe, what did I see? K-State had 1 punt, I think, with him at quarterback the entire game. Incredible job by him. Really confident throws. I mean, there is some level of optimism. Like, if he can stay healthy enough to like be in the game and play, he was really throwing the ball well. So that does give me, I suppose, some level of optimism. I don't know. Daniel, thank you for the donation. Daniel, thank you for being here. Thank you for the support. Daniel says, using my West Virginia math, I think the rumors on the $33 million is a fair tier 1, tier 2 payout. Tack on the NCAA and college football playoff money along with tier 3. It's more than last year's Big 12 payments. Yeah, I mean, basically, so we don't know. We don't and won't, I guess, know until like every year it happens what the specific payments will be for the tournament, for the NCAA tournament, and then for college football playoff, et cetera. But the playoff money is going to go up too. We do know that. Like with where this is going, an expanded playoff, you'll be taking in more from that. So will everybody else. But that money will increase also. So how I would look at it is like right now, if it is a $400 million deal, which again was the report from Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist at the New York Post, if it is $400 million overall and everybody's getting $33 million, we're starting at a baseline of you've gone up by $5 million in terms of your payout. And then it's probably going to go up more with the playoff whenever that happens. Revenues continue to go up for everything right now. So those numbers are going to advance a little bit too. You just won't be making any more relative to other conferences at that point. But yeah, it's going to continue to move north for these schools. And so, like, I guess the question to me would come down to, I mean, again, is it worth not waiting an extra 16 months to see how much more that could go up? Like, is it worth it to take your shot, shoot your shot basically at the 4 corner schools, and just from a marketing and confident, like projecting strength standpoint, be able to say, hey, we got in front of the Pac-12 on this deal, got this done. ESPN and Fox are going to be a part of this. We're going to have great visibility here. It's a medium-term deal, which is what I would imagine it would be. Medium-term deal, so we can still come back if streaming is going to be a bigger issue, if that, or like a bigger deal, bigger player in 5 years, and we can get more money out of that. We can come back and do that, and it is still betting on yourself in a way. I understand the play there, but you probably are leaving a little bit of money on the table if you do it that way. But yes, that was one of the things. I did a standalone video on it, so I'll just promote that. If you missed it, I posted it on Saturday morning, just outlining some of the details there. But some of the things that Andrew Marchand said, Number he was hearing was $400 million per year. Said that the sides were still apart on that at the moment. So like Fox and ESPN haven't come and agreed on that yet, but that is what the Big 12 would be seeking. But his logic was, look, if I were Fox or ESPN, I would definitely do that. And even if you overpay a little bit, like if you pay a little bit more right now for what it is that you ultimately want to pay, it'd be worth it in the end because you'd still be coming out ahead based on what you'd be paying in 16 months if you did the deal then. So that would be the general idea there for why the Big 12 could get that done with Fox and ESPN. He said a couple things. He said getting it done quickly to make a statement is what Yormark is likely going for here. Same thing we've already talked about. Yeah, I mean, I took a couple of notes. It was a podcast where that came from. So I took some notes there, but that's basically what you need to know there. And again, more detail on that in that video that I posted on Saturday morning. There was I'm getting to the donations, guys. I will get to them as quickly as I can. I did kind of want to fit in here the John Canzano response, Pac-12 propaganda machine response here. And he, to his credit, I mean, John was, I feel like putting this out there, expecting a lot of Big 12 interaction, and he was going back and forth with people. And and this is what's frustrating about it. Like there are people that make bad arguments with him and then he'll go back and forth with them, like from Big 12 country, where I'm like, that's not the way to really attack this. And even me, I quote tweeted his article and said, like, framing Brett Yormark being a good salesman when the idea saying that it's bad that Yormark is a good salesman when the idea is to generate money for a conference seems like a very interesting take. He did fairly respectfully come back at me and just say that's not really the point of the article, but you're looking at it through Big 12 lenses, something like that. I chose not to engage any further than that at that point because, look, we are both in some ways doing the same thing on opposite sides. And so we're going to disagree a little bit on that. But the article came across to me with this tone of like Brett Yormark is sort of a snake oil salesman. That's kind of the way I took it. I'll read you some of it here. It says Brett Yormark graduated college at Indiana, went to work as a ticket seller for the Nets. Then he sold TV time to professional sports teams. And after that, he graduated to peddling sponsorships. He's a salesman. Even the word peddling there, that's to me, that's got a negative connotation to it. Says he's a salesman. Yormark helped sell America on NASCAR as a mainstream sport. Then he got in the business of Barbra Streisand concerts, Bruce Springsteen and Billy Joel events, boxing matches, and NBA sponsorships. Jay-Z's no dummy. When he needed a cutthroat salesman to head Rock Nation, he hired Yormark. Said one industry insider, Brett is a sales guy through and through. He's outselling. Doesn't matter whether he's in New York, Dallas, or Provo. That's Yormark, who is now employed as the Big 12 Conference Commissioner. His act is one giant sales pitch. Keep that in mind when you hear him float the idea that this conference may be closing in on a media rights deal with ESPN and Fox. Ask yourself, who's he selling today? His bosses, ESPN, Fox, you and me, or the Pac-12's Four Corners universities? The Big 12's media rights contract with ESPN and Fox expires after the 2024-25 academic year. It's easy to make a deal with your existing partners, basically an extension. So it's possible Yormark wants to step in front of the Pac-12's ongoing negotiation and make sure his conference doesn't get stuck eating leftovers. All right, so I feel like, can you pick up on what I'm saying about the tone of this here? Like the tone is not like, oh, look at these accomplishments. Like he sold the world on NASCAR. He got the Nets moved to Brooklyn from New Jersey, like major accomplishments. It's more like, nah, look, this guy wants to get you to a Billy Joel concert. It doesn't matter what it is. He'll just pick up the next thing and he's going to be cutthroat salesman guy. And that's all he's doing. I would argue that's what the Big 12 needs right now. Anyway, rest of the story continues. Multiple conference sources continue to tell me Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and Arizona State aren't interested in leaving the Big 12 for the Pac-12. They've never wavered, and I believe them, but maybe Yormark is chumming the waters anyway. One current Pac-12 AD waved it off on Friday morning and told me our path is clear and we are progressing nicely. Pac-12 media rights are on the open market. I'm told a digital partner are in line for a chunk of the rights. Thompson, this is Bob Thompson, the former head of Fox, said if Fox and ESPN renew with the Big 12, he believes Fox is likely out of the running for a Pac-12 sponsorship. A negotiation with new partners, Apple, Amazon is a very different animal compared to a renewal with existing partners. Here we go. Yormark's public pitch is dramatically different than the subdued, calculated act of Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkov. I've wondered for a while if it's a misfire for Kliavkov to sit silently when so much is being said about his conference. Others tell me it's just a difference in style, possibly dictated by Pac-12 presidents and chancellors. Kliavkov is a strategist, not a salesman. Count me among those who believe a healthy college sports ecosystem includes both the Big 12 and Pac-12. I think both conferences will cut new media rights deals and end up coexisting. But I'm fascinated by the dramatically different approaches. So the one last thing I will throw in here is that I saw not only did Canzano write this, but then Wilner followed up with a tweet emphasizing this. They're still very upset about how things went down with the report that came out from ESPN and Pete Thamel about the Big 12 supposedly turning down the idea of a Pac-12 merger. So this crops back up in the story here. The Big 12 can certainly cut an early deal, but I think it's wiser to wait 12 to 16 months. Oh, no, hang on. I skipped ahead. I'm sorry. In mid-July, Yormark and Kliavkov had conversations. Multiple sources tell me that the talks were cordial. However, there was never serious discussion about a merger or partnership between the two leagues. There were just too many tentacles and complications. The men hung up. Within an hour, someone leaked that the Big 12 was no longer interested in a merger deal. It was opportunistic messaging, but left several Pac-12 presidents and chancellors puzzled. They weren't considering a merger with the Big 12. So that is like a real sticking point. That clearly sticks in the craw of the Pac-12 right now, that they lost that media cycle, basically, right? Like the media cycle turned into the Big 12 is the one that turned down the Pac-12. I don't know what happened there. I don't have the sources there. All I know is that that is like the one thing Pete Thamel has reported on this whole time. He's kind of sat back, and it's been like the Dennis Dodds of the world taking care of a lot of this reporting. Pete Thamel does not really miss. I mean, Pete Thamel is, to me, the number one like college football newsbreaker guy. He's not missing on much of this, and if that happens, I'm going to be pretty trusting of his discernment there on what the source is that's telling him that, and him deciding to run with it. So I don't know, man. Either you got one pulled over on you by the master salesman Brett Yormark, or what actually happened was closer to what Thamel actually reported. Either way, it happened in July, and the fact that the Pac-12 is still very concerned about that and worried about that tells me a lot of what I need to know about where they're at right now in all this, and kind of back on their heels. And this is what I think Yormark is very good at. He's not going to be back on his heels. He's going to have the conference being aggressive, pushing forward. And it is very clear to me right now that the Pac-12 is the conference that certainly appears to be much more back on its heels in this whole game. So it's an interesting snapshot into what's happening in Pac-12 country, what they're thinking, where they're at. Not real big fans, as you might imagine, seemingly, of Brett Yormark, and not really liking his style. I am a fan of the style still. I think it's what the league needs. I think they need that aggressiveness. They need that push. I don't know that everything's going to be perfect. I don't love the idea of moving the Big 12 tournament, which it sounds like Yormark is probably going to do right now, or at least there's been some conversation about moving that way. So there may be a little bit that's going to have to get worked out, or that won't be perfect to my liking. But I think in general, the strategy he's taking is what is needed right now, and what's turned into an incredibly cutthroat environment in college athletics. Called him a cutthroat salesman in the article. It's cutthroat. There was an alliance. The Pac-12 was in it until they weren't, until they got schools stolen by one of the leagues in the alliance. It's cutthroat out there, dude. You need somebody cutthroat leading your league. And George Kliavkov does not seem to be nearly as cutthroat as Brett Yormark. I'll take that guy on my side 7 days a week right now, as opposed to the guy on the other side of it. Okay, let me get to the rest of the donations here for you guys, and then it'll probably take us to the point of about wrapping up. Let's see. Yeah, I probably got like 5 to 10 minutes here. So if you want to get something in, do it now. You can click the $ below the chat box where it says say something to get your donation in. That'll pin your chat up to the top for me and allow me to see it. Guarantees that it gets read here on the chat. And it also is a way that you can support the work I'm doing, bringing you Big 12 content week in, week out here on the channel. It is appreciated as always. Okay, Gary says, which Big 12 teams make a bowl? All right, let me pull those standings back up here just so I make sure that I don't miss anybody. You are definitely going to have TCU in a bowl. They're 7-0. You're definitely going to have Oklahoma State in a bowl. They're 6-1. I know I've been doom and gloom about my Cats here, but I think they're going to make a bowl. I think Texas will make a bowl. They're 5-3. I think Baylor will make a bowl. They're 4-3, but we are now coming into I need to go pull up the schedule territory. And you guys know, I picked Baylor to win the league. I've been really high on Baylor the entire offseason. But they've got at Tech, at Oklahoma, K-State, TCU at home, and at Texas. I mean, it's not super easy. I think they will find. I think there's too much there, too much like championship medal in that program for them to not pick up a couple of wins along the way the rest of the year. But it will not be easy. Texas Tech, I definitely think the way that they're playing, they're going to get to a bowl. And Tech has Iowa State. They just got West Virginia. They've still got Iowa State, a home game with Oklahoma, a home game with Kansas, who's kind of fading, a home game with Baylor, who's been very up and down. There's a road game with TCU in there that we talked about earlier. I definitely think Tech's going to get there. So that now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're at Kansas. Kansas needs one more. I think, again, that could be tricky, but those guys just do not quit on anybody. They're going to get someone before the end of the year. They're going to get someone. I hope it's not November 25th, but they're going to get somebody. So I would project them to make a bowl. Now we're into real scary hours here, okay? So Oklahoma, so like West Virginia, Iowa State, I don't think it's going to happen. Don't think it's going to happen there. To me, we're at 7, and then the question comes down to, does Oklahoma get it done? They've got at Iowa State, at West Virginia, at Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, and Baylor at home. That seems to me like they will find a way to get that done. So unless I am screwing up the math somehow in there with like counting all these games and like who's going to win what, I would say 7 or 8, more likely 8 Big 12 teams make a bowl, which would definitely be a testament to the depth of this league. And then you'll have at the bottom of the league, those 2 schools I mentioned there, West Virginia and Iowa State. And it's not even, Iowa State's been so damn close. I feel a little silly almost saying that in a way. But you've missed a lot of opportunities here, and you're just behind the 8 ball. Alan, what's up, Alan? Thank you for the donation and the support. Alan says, hey, John, tough Saturday for KU and K-State. Yes, it was. Looking forward to embarrassing Texas in a few weeks. See you in Manhattan. Rock Chalk Jayhawk, Alan. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for checking in. Thank you for the support. I would still be pretty proud of your Jayhawks, Alan. I didn't, in just for full transparency, I didn't get to watch a lot of that game. I was out running some errands and trying to get some things done on Saturday morning. Met a friend for coffee too. So I was just checking the game on my phone. I meant to watch a cut up of it. I really haven't even seen that. So I saw some of the very end. I was listening on the radio actually for some of it. Like I heard the strip that was almost run all the way back for a touchdown by Kansas that kind of flipped the game in the second half. It's just like Leipold gets those guys to play their butts off, and they do not quit. And they're even with Jason Bean still fighting and scrapping, the backup quarterback, which again, I'm still pretty convinced that's much more about the system, which I think is a better thing for Kansas than it is being about Jalen Daniels at QB. Defense, the other thing I would be happy with on Saturday for Kansas fans is that like the defense was forcing turnovers. Shapen, very sloppy, but I mean, hey, if you're not going to be a great defense, if you're going to be more of like a bend but don't break at best defense, you're going to have to be forcing turnovers, and they forced turnovers. And that's how they got it to within 1 possession at the end of the game. So that is not something Kansas of the past was doing. That's not something any Kansas team since Mark Mangino is doing, is getting that game down 28-3 in Waco to a 1 possession game in the fourth quarter. No Kansas team since Mark Mangino left town is doing that. But Lance Leipold's team did. Mick, what's up, Mick? Mick says, I can confirm us Bears do love Brando, but to be clear, it's less about his ability to form coherent statements and more about his love for Baylor. Okay. All right. That's interesting. I didn't know that there was a love affair going on there between Brando and Baylor fans. I won't try to speak for you guys. You guys can have your own opinions, but the guy does a wretched broadcast at this point in his career. So I would just encourage you to watch Big 12 football games or whatever game he's calling and tell me that just listen through to it and tell me that it's not a broadcast that makes you want to pull your hair out. And especially when it's your team playing, because then, again, like I said, I'm aware of all the storylines that are happening here that are being just completely missed, totally missed. I see Matthew says, I found Cole Manbeck at the game. He said you were lame for not coming. Yeah, well, I kind of am. I traveled for 10 years with the team. I was always having to drive. I'm just tired of being in a car for long road trips and spending my entire weekend in a car to see a game. That's frankly what it comes down to. So yeah, a little bit lame, but I did not make the trip. Elvin, what's up, Elvin? Thank you for the donation. Thank you for being here and supporting the channel. Elvin says, Big 12 fans will love BYU road games. Was there for the Arkansas game. It was amazing. Provo was a cool city. The fans were super nice, and the views from the stadium can't be beat. It got loud there, too. Yeah, that is, I'm talking here about road trips that I'm not going to make. That's one that I definitely will make. See, this is the part. I've done all these road trips in the Big 12 a million times. And so, like, I've been there. I've seen them all. But what I haven't done is go to a game in Provo. I haven't even been to the state of Utah ever. So I really want to go to that. I definitely want to take in that game when it happens. So that is one that you will get me to. You will definitely get me there. I will go watch that game. And I mean, look, I saw the fans, at least at the Arkansas game. BYU was handing out ice cream to the fans there. Like, yeah, they're unbelievably nice. And I'm sure the atmosphere is great. It gets loud. Like, just a really, really good, passionate fan base and a very nice fan base. I don't think when I go there, I'm going to get beer thrown at me like a lot of K-State fans were in Fort Worth on Saturday. Not going to happen. Snappy AJ, what's up, Snappy AJ? Here we go. Here's some more. Speaking of TCU students, Snappy AJ says TCU students were heckling me even with a 6-year-old girl in purple in my arms. I always go to that game with my wife and have never seen them that ugly. Can KSU OSU be a coin flip so we can heal? Man, I mean, Vegas seems to think K-State Oklahoma State is close to a coin flip early on here, but I don't. So unfortunately, you're not going to get a whole lot of positivity out of me on that front, Snappy AJ. But hopefully, this is just me being negative fan mode, and I'll be wrong. But again, some of this based on just what I've heard early on with the injuries. I don't like it. Do not like it. And yeah, Snappy AJ, a guy who's been there a while. What the hell is it with TCU fans all of a sudden like this year? I don't. Is it just that for a long time there's been apathy among the students, and now there's a more intense student crowd there, and that's why this is happening? I mean, I guess it was a night game, so you had all day to drink and get loaded before the game. I don't know what the difference is because yeah, I've been there 4 times, never had a problem. I was filming on the sideline for 3 of those trips at least. So I'm like walking down on the K-State sideline, never had any issue at all, never saw anything. And then I just have seen a wave of reports like this and then saw the game get stopped because of crap being thrown on the field on Saturday. So I don't get it. Do not understand. Matthew. Thank you, Matthew, for another donation. Matthew says TCU fans are bad. They're lucky K-State also wears purple, so it doesn't look like a bowl game. Going to DFW and bringing all the cactus energy if we win. That's right, boy. If TCU fans are this rowdy with K-State in the house, I mean, Texas Tech, where there's actually like some history or just more, because of the regionality of that, like a little more fire, a little more tooth to that rivalry. I can't even imagine what that's going to be like. And Texas Tech fans aren't going to back down either. I know the Cactus Mafia. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. Matthew says TCU fans equal UT fans without the high success. Little bro. Well, yeah, I mean, if we're playing to stereotypes here, I do think of TCU being sort of in that same vein as Texas, but just not nearly to that level. Like I said, I'm still very puzzled by all this. But Matthew, you're much, much closer to it than I am. So I don't know. Maybe there's a TCU fan in here that wants to stick up or at least offer a little bit more of an explanation. But yeah, that was a puzzling one to me. Bud, what's up, Bud? It's great to hear from you. Thank you. Appreciate your support so very much, as always. If you are going to Lubbock, if you're going to check out a game in LBK, make sure that you go to LubbockGuesthouse.com if you need a place to stay. Bud's got the hook up there, LubbockGuesthouse.com. Thank you, Bud. Bud says, my 2 favorite teams won this weekend, the Raiders and whoever is playing UT. Proud of both. Thanks for the work, John. Well, thank you, Bud. And yes, I'm with you. Always great to see Texas go down, and they did at the hands of Oklahoma State this weekend. So yes, great weekend for Tech fans. Go get after it, man. Continue to get after all the UT brethren that you are around there in the state of Texas. So shout out to you, Bud. Appreciate you, and fun weekend for Tech fans. And I legitimately enjoyed watching both Tech and Oklahoma State play on Saturday. So. There we go. All right. I think I've caught up on the donation front as far as that goes. So the last thing I'll slip in here, and I know I said bad news for Texas, Oklahoma. I mentioned the Brent Venables contract very briefly. Let me just pay off the rest of that story. The bad news on that front for Oklahoma, Should Oklahoma fire Brent Venables? Now, I think we're probably off that train for Oklahoma fans because they've had a week to just cool off after a bye and beating Kansas. So that talk from the message board corners of the earth is probably quieted a little bit. But if this thing were to continue to go very quickly downhill, Brent Venables' contract is fully guaranteed, which is something the Athletic found because they obtained the contract. So it's $43.5 million, 6 years, $43.5 million for Brent Venables. And if they're going to fire him at any point, they own the entire contract. So they're going to pay him $7 million this first year. And then after that, if they were going to fire him, so it would be, where did that go? It was like $36 million. Yeah, it would cost Oklahoma around $36 million to fire him after one season. So if you really think he's not the guy, if you really want to go get like Matt Rule, like some Oklahoma fans, I've seen that speculation out there. Oh, we need to go get Rule now that he's going to be on the market here. Yeah, it's going to cost you a pretty penny, namely $36 million to go do so if you are Oklahoma. Venables makes $7 million his first year. His annual compensation increases by $100,000 each year to the contract's conclusion. Now, it points out here, coaches' contracts normally have included a liquidated damages clause that puts in writing a reduced percentage the university would owe the coach should it choose to fire him. However, several high-profile coaches recently have been given fully guaranteed deals, including Jimbo Fisher, Mel Tucker, and James Franklin. So, yeah, we're definitely seeing more and more of that. We're also seeing more and more of that go horribly. Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M just lost to South Carolina this weekend. Mel Tucker, Michigan State's having a terrible season. They're on the hook for all this money for him. Penn State, he's always just kind of James Franklin's been a bit of a tease there, but certainly the most successful out of all those. These contracts are not going very well, and I am a bit surprised that with the cachet Oklahoma had built up in terms of the job that Venables was taking, the fact that there's a history with him there, there's just a lot tying him there and a lot that would make sense for a first-time head coach to be very eager to take that job. I wouldn't think you'd have to acquiesce by giving a fully guaranteed contract, but alas, he is represented by Jimmy Sexton, who is like a super agent. I believe that was there somewhere in the article here. Yes, Jimmy Sexton, the sport's most prominent coaching agent, who also negotiated the 3 deals mentioned above. So that's probably just all about the agent that Venables has. He's got himself a good agent, and you can tell by what that deal wound up being. So wanted to get that in there. That would not make me feel great if I were an Oklahoma fan, because even like next year, you're thinking, so next year, if you give him 2 years, it's still not going well. You could subtract 14 from that 40. I mean, you're still looking at 27, 28 million, something like that to get rid of him. Plus you're going to have the exit fee from the Big 12 at the end of 2025. Like, you're going to have SEC money. You're going to have a lot of money, but man, for Oklahoma, that still can be pretty pricey. That's going to be the decision at some point. So interesting calculus going on there. Joe, thank you, Joe. See Joe with a big donation. Joe, really appreciate that, man. Right at the final hour here. Very, very much appreciate that. Joe says, thanks for the good words on the Cactus Mafia. Sorry on the loss in Fort Worth. Season is not over. It feels like it, Joe, because of the injury report, because K-State's probably not going to be able to use quarterback run the rest of the year, no matter which one of those two guys is playing quarterback. I'm not sure either one will be able to go on Saturday. This was supposed to be the year to compete for a Big 12 title. You're going to have a big drop-off next year, losing likely Felix, Deuce, Adrian. Going to be a bit of a rebuild next year. And if this turns into another 7-5 sort of season, it's just going to be a real disappointment. Just waiting for this program to take the next step. Hasn't been happening and needed to stay relatively healthy for that to happen this year. And I digress. I'm down bad, guys. As the kids would say, I'm down bad. Somehow I'm going to do a K-State podcast in about 12 hours, little less than 12 hours from right now. So you can kind of pick up the tone here. My 3-mall listeners, it's probably what you're going to hear a lot of. But yes, the sun will come up. The sun will come up tomorrow. I'll put on a happy face. I'll come on here. Texas is still losing. We can crack some Texas jokes. It'll all be good. But happy for your Red Raiders getting the win on Saturday, Joe. Happy for where the program seems to be for Texas Tech. And it'll be very fun to watch. So thank you for the support, my friend. Thank you for the support, everybody, not only who donated here tonight, but just who was in the chat. If you gave the video a like, which you can still do before the final buzzer here, I would appreciate that. All the support for the channel is unbelievable. We're over 15,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys so very much for being here. Hit me up on Twitter if you want to get in touch with me, at JL Kurtz on Twitter. I try to be pretty responsive in the DMs there. That's one way to get in touch with me. Spread the word to your family, friends, whoever on social media, word of mouth about the channel. If they love Big 12 football, let them know that this channel exists and that they can hop in here. Check out the video from Saturday morning if you want a little bit more on that dollar figure being thrown out there for the Big 12 TV contract. And I think that's about all I have for you. Oh, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you'd like to support the channel as well and you didn't happen to catch this show live. Oh, we got a couple in here at the buzzer. Boom to the Sooner. Boom to the Sooner. Who finishes higher in the Big 12 standings, the Sooners or the Shorthorns? Oh, I'd still probably go Texas. They did crush you guys pretty good there. I understand Dylan Gabriel being out. Listen, I know what a difference it makes when you've got your backup quarterback in there or one of your backup quarterbacks as opposed to a starting QB. But I take Texas. They've got a pretty solid edge right now. Oklahoma, you guys probably should have beaten Kansas by 4 scores, and instead it was just 2 and a little bit sloppy. I'm not sold on Oklahoma having some massive turnaround here in the second half of the season. So I would go Texas. Boom to the Sooner. I'm sorry to say there for you, but I would go Texas. Justin in at the final hour too. Justin says it was a good weekend. USF didn't lose bye week. Oh, okay. All right. There we go. You know who did? UCF did. They got destroyed by ECU. Also, ECU is 5-3 and they play BYU on Friday. That's right. Thank you for that, Joe. I forgot about that. I was like, I knew that BYU's. Oh, that was the last game I couldn't think of on their schedule. I knew it was tricky. That's exactly why. Because it's East Carolina who just pounded UCF over the weekend. So, yeah, that will be tricky for sure. Congratulations to USF not losing. My boy Joe, I'm happy for you. Or Justin, I'm sorry, I'm happy for you on that front. All right, obviously I'm scatterbrained here at the end. It's been an hour and 11 minutes, people. I'm going to duck out, but thank you for being here on the chat. I will talk to you guys soon. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night.